I've collected a decent amount of platinum trophies, but I've never played and platinumed many difficult games. The hardest game I've ever platinumed was Cuphead with a difficulty rating of a 7 out of 10. But usually I like to play single player games just to have fun and relax, and I'll play multiplayer games if I want a real challenge. But a great way to change that is through what trophy hunters like to call the difficulty challenge. So today, it's time to tackle just that, as I will be platinuming 10 games ranging from a 1 out of 10 difficulty all the way to a 10 out of 10 difficulty. This was going to be tough and take a very long time, so I needed to do a little preparation before starting. Therefore, I had set up the rules for myself as follows. I needed to platinum 10 games in a row, with each game being a new and higher difficulty than the game before. So starting at the 1 out of 10, then 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, and so on. Next, every game must have a trophy guide that shows the difficulty. This is to show I had proof and I wasn't just making up the difficulty myself. Then the games I would choose would have to be games I truly wanted to play, so I could use this as an excuse to work on my never-ending backlog and have as much fun as possible throughout. Also, in order to shake things up a bit, I would need to platinum at least one game on a different console or platform other than my PS5 to add to the challenge, so on PS3, 4, or in VR. And lastly, I was going to do all of this in 100 days. Doing this in 100 days would not only force me to actually finish the challenge, not play anything else in between, and hopefully improve my gaming skills on a set time limit. And if I couldn't do it, I would have to platinum a game more embarrassing than My Name is Mayo, the single most worthless piece of doo-doo shovelware platinum to exist, Stroke the Dick Dick. So if I want to avoid having that ruin my trophy list, it would mean that I have to be on a pace of a platinum every 10 days, which shouldn't be a problem for the first few lower difficulty games, but a massive challenge for some of the later ones. And if I wanted this challenge to stay fun, this wasn't going to be easy. Motherfucker! So on day 1, I started the challenge. Starting with the 1 out of 10 difficulty, and since it was the easiest difficulty, I was thinking I was going to have a ton of games to pick from, but that wasn't the case. Most of the games available were those shit shovelware games, you know, those games where you click the cross button 1000 times to unlock a platinum trophy. Obviously, we weren't going to do that, so I looked further and saw the Telltale games. However, I had already platinumed most of these already, and that left surprisingly little choice available. But eventually I stumbled across a free game called Light in the Darkness, and that's what I decided to start this challenge with. Purely by looking at the graphics, I didn't have high expectations heading into this game. It was a game I'd wanted to try for a while, but never bothered to. So this was very low on my backlog, but thankfully some of the later games would be much more exciting. However, Light in the Darkness was quite frankly terrible. It's an educational game about a family's experience during the Second World War, so it does require a slightly different take on what is actually important, which for the devs clearly wasn't the gameplay. Because, my word, all you do is walk from A to B and interact with something. All of the trophies are tied to just playing through the game, no missables, collectibles, enemies to fight, or anything else. It was literally the easiest game I could find that wasn't shovelware. Although it wasn't a Telltale game, it was basically the same experience. As I unlocked trophy after trophy, sitting there in silence staring at my screen, I got a trophy that I wanted to make a joke about. I want to say something about that, but I won't. Although it was a relaxing game to play through, the whole thing was just boring. The walking speed was slow, the graphics were not aesthetically pleasing, and the whole game was just uninspiring to play. I tried to keep an open mind and listen to the story carefully, which was all based on true stories, but that's about the only thing I can give it credit for because it was insightful to learn about. It was just an interactive movie with an emotional story connected to it, but not even anywhere near as fun as, for example, a Telltale game would be. But because it was the easiest game of the challenge, maybe that's why there was nothing interesting about it. And after some 2 hours of this game, that was the first game done, and I could look forward to finding a better game for the 2 out of 10 difficulty the next morning. Platinum 1 out of 10. There were a ton more games at 2 out of 10 that I was interested in, mostly a lot of indie games like Lake and Last Stop, but also a few big ones like The Last of Us Part 1, although nothing that truly grabbed my attention or that was high on my backlog. But that was until I found a game that I had tried shortly back in my very early days of trophy hunting but had never gotten the platinum trophy for. A game that I thought I had actually popped a trophy for and it was on my account, but never attempted to platinum because I wasn't interested in it. And the game I'm talking about is Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Turns out it was never even on my trophy list because I never popped a trophy for it. But I had played it for 42 minutes all the way back in 2016. And as soon as I booted up this game again, I instantly remembered why I never went for the plat. This game is hands down the most boring game to ever exist. This game was therefore insanely difficult, but not because of hard enemies or anything, because there are none, but because of the sheer magnitude of not falling asleep. The game is about an empty town that has been plagued with some sort of virus that made everyone disappear, which is an interesting concept, I'll give it that. But when you look at the gameplay, I mean, what you're seeing right now is all there is to it. It is the definition of a walking simulator, which would be fine if it was at a decent pace, but holy fucking shit, this dude we play as crawls over the floor. You can follow the light and see where you want to go, only to realize that a 100-meter walk is going to take you like 10 minutes to get there. But I had to accept it because there's nothing I can do if I want to pop these trophies, which consisted of many collectibles and various ending related trophies, which may sound like a complete time dump, but thankfully a full story run only takes about 3 hours, and if I needed one specific thing I could get it done in just under an hour, so it shouldn't be too bad. Except it was. Since the walking speed was so slow, walking towards each collectible took agonizingly long, and I unfortunately didn't care about the story at all either. The game contained nothing to trigger my dopamine-infested brain for something new. Like, everything was just a static picture, not a game. Because nothing moved, talked, or interacted with me. It was so eerily unalive. I finished my first 2 playthroughs, but needed a third one to get the remaining things done, which consisted of me once again, identical to the first 2 playthroughs, following a guide. This time, 4 different guides at once from Brian the Goat at PS5 Trophies, and follow his instructions to get all collectibles in one run. So, as I reached the final chapter of the game with all of the last things needed, I was eventually closing in on the final collectibles for the last few trophies. But before I went to get those, I had to eat some dinner, and after I had gotten back from munching and turning on my PS5 again, my game had crashed. I cannot explain how pissed off I am. Look where I am. Shout out to Brian from PS5 Trophies. Look at how far along I am in the video. I need 4 more collectibles. 1 more in this video, 1 more in this video, and 1 more in this video. I followed 4 guides at once, and the game crashes and puts me back at the beginning. Yeah, I had just spent over 3 hours following 4 different guides with so many collectibles to a T, and now it was all just gone. So there was no other option for me other than to start again right from the beginning. This time, I was only going to do it in 2 separate playthroughs with half of the collectibles each, just so that if I did get another crash, it wouldn't be as disastrous, which it somehow still did. Same thing, same place, again. Thankfully, this time the game did save and it wasn't as much of a backtrack, but still, bro, this really didn't help with my enjoyment of the game. But after finally reaching the end after multiple playthroughs and crashes and finding every collectible I needed, I was ready to pop the Platinum Trophy. That never popped. Turns out the guide missed 1 collectible in the game and I missed 1 from the guide, meaning I needed to backtrack again to find another 2 collectibles. Keep in mind, there is no chapter select or anything in this game, but thank Brian, the guide warned me this could happen and had me prepare a save file in advance, so I reload my save and got the remaining collectibles I needed and popped the trophy. Oh my god. Fucking hell. Now I had just 1 miscellaneous trophy left, which required me to stand still for 5 minutes. Yep, that's all there is to it. So much for being more difficult than the 1 out of 10. But after 5 minutes, it still didn't pop. 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes passed, but nothing. Which got me scared, thinking it might be glitched and lock me out of the Platinum Trophy. I've been sat here for almost 9 minutes waiting for this stupid trophy to pop. But after waiting for what felt like an eternity, this happened. Oh my god, it did pop. Holy shit, it was 10 minutes. Look at this shit, bro. 10 minutes, but we got it. We got it. Holy shit, that was a nightmare. 24 hours in, and I already have 2 platinums secured. This world record speedrun pace wasn't going to last long though. Starting with the 3 out of 10 difficulty, this is where I finally had the most choice of games I was interested in. Usually RPGs or big open worlds and games that have a form of combat will have a 3 to 10 difficulty. I looked at what games were available and saw games like Plague Tale, Medieval, Far Cry, or co-op games like We Were Here, but since this difficulty had so many options and the games are only becoming more difficult, I thought it was the perfect time to look at games for other platforms. Which I did with much enthusiasm and very quickly found a game on sale that I was extremely interested in for ages. So it was finally time to play Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge on the PSVR 2. I'm a sucker for anything Star Wars related, and so was incredibly excited to dive in. But it was going to be a very different experience playing in VR. As I'd only platinumed 2 games ever before in VR, I was definitely not accustomed to it properly just yet. The game revolves around you being a cargo smuggler, and you stumble across multiple characters you have to save and help throughout. The planets were gorgeous and based on locations I recognized from the movies and Disney Park. I did struggle a fair bit with motion sickness and the shooting mechanics early on, but the shooting mechanics took a small learning curve to get adjusted to. I was often over-peaking and getting shot like a brainless banta, but also just missing shots I should be hitting like your average stormtrooper. So it took a few encounters before I was really comfortable. But I was popping many trophies already, because there were only 24 trophies to unlock and a lot of them were from playing the story, side missions and a few challenges, but of course also collectibles. So I was scanning everything and anything I came across. I hate collectibles in VR, so I was looking everywhere to find as many things as I could on my natural first playthrough because, as you'll see later, they are a pain to get in VR. But as I moved further into the story and was approaching the end of it, I was seriously very engaged with it. I was really enjoying it. It was fun and not too difficult, but enough challenge for me to not breeze through. As I approached the last main story mission, I was tasked to go undercover as a stormtrooper, and that was just so cool. It was by far the most Star Wars-y part of this game so far because the bass, sounds, and enemies were so very reminiscent of my favorite parts of Star Wars. Our squad at the end managed to blow up the base and lived happily ever after. That meant I could move on to the side missions. These were basically short tales or missions with very different styles. One of them was about becoming a Jedi where I could finally wield a flippin' lightsaber. Like, bro, do you know how much I felt like an ultimate Star Wars nerd when I realized what was happening? First, you meet flippin' Yoda of all people, who is even smaller than I thought, but I talk to him a bit and start swinging the laser sword, which is incredibly satisfying and very fun to use. Then later in a further side mission, you do some Jedi training with a young Padawan and it's just all so cool, bro. Luckily, none of the missions were particularly difficult, and if it was challenging, it was just because I couldn't get the funky VR controls to work. But there was another side mission where we play as a bounty hunter droid named IG-88, who is a complete badass. However, there's a lot of collectibles in this mission that we need to scan, and that took a while. Like I said earlier, collectibles in VR just straight up suck. Every time you want to know where the next collectible is, you have to take off your headset and look at a different screen and follow the guide. It is very annoying and irritating to do, especially for this mission where I had to play through it 3 times before finding all the collectibles. The 3rd time was when I got everything because for some reason one of the collectibles didn't allow me to scan it. It was a very frustrating 60 minutes of playing the same mission over and over. But after we did that, there was just the main collectibles left, which meant even more insanely tedious grinding for many scans and blaster challenges that were left. Completing those ever so slowly, doing a ton of backtracking for the ones I missed, but making my way through until we found everything in the game. This left us with just one difficult miscellaneous trophy that I saved for last. The trophy Stay on Target, where I have to achieve a score of 4,950 in repulsor darts. The requirements are simple, except with how funky and unreliable VR aiming can be, this was a serious challenge. The darts throw themselves, meaning I just have to release them. However, they can fly so strangely out of where they're supposed to go that it made this trophy a real struggle. I was lining up my shots perfectly, thinking I was the next Star Wars version of Luke the Nuke Littler. However, with each dart that kept missing, I was running out of patience. You only have 3 attempts to hit the target, and at least one of those must hit the blue spinning target or the bullseye in order to get 3 new darts without resetting your score. But I wasn't very good at it, and I started feeling like a washed Barney every time I failed. But thankfully, after attempting this trophy for far too long, I managed to pull this off. Go on. Oh, son. Holy shit. But it meant that just 4 days after starting this challenge, I had already platinumed 3 out of the 10 games needed. And that was great because I was way ahead of schedule. However, with each game becoming more difficult, I was sure to need some extra days for those later difficult games. The 4 to 10 difficulty is often given to a lot of story-driven games that have a fair amount of combat throughout. Well, at least something that requires you to not be brain dead to complete. So I saw some great games like Dead Space and Outer Worlds, but also Alan Wake, which was very high up on my backlog. But one game that was higher than any other game was one that I had waited way too long to get to, and that was God of War Ragnarok. I had played the 2018 God of War a few years back as my very first God of War, having never played any of the originals. Back then, I thought it was a great game, but I wasn't overly in love with the game like many people were. So I wasn't too eager to get my hands on God of War Ragnarok when that game initially launched. Sure, I was excited, but I thought I would just wait for a sale and grab the game then. I shouldn't have. I can't believe I waited this long to finally play it. But I was not ready for the step up in difficulty this game was going to be. It started with me blindly playing through the main story of the game, which was nothing short of phenomenal. It clicked with me so much more than the 2018 God of War, maybe because it made more sense to me this time around, I don't know, but there were so many iconic moments throughout that literally gave me goosebumps multiple times. The fights were incredible and honestly jaw-dropping to experience. But throughout the story, I was already working on many of the trophies I needed to do as well, which obviously involved a ton of collectibles and other miscellaneous tasks. I was looking out for the ravens and artifacts along the way as I was sure they would be needed for the trophies. But that's where I made my first small mistake of the challenge. You see, this game is quite a big and long one compared to the others, which would require a good look at the trophy guide to complete. However, because this is a once-in-a-lifetime type of game, I didn't want to read the trophy guide completely in order to not be spoiled. So all I knew heading into this game was to complete the story and do the collectibles and side missions. Except, as you'll see in a bit, this meant I was unintentionally going for the in-game 100% rather than just the platinum trophy. For example, the Drogners. I expected these enemies to need to be defeated for a few trophies, and so I fought each one of these mini-bosses with so much pain over and over again, I probably spent 15 minutes on each of these goofballs dying over and over again. But of course, felt great to defeat afterwards.
You honestly, you're so fucking trash, bro. You're actually fucking trash. Suck my wiener.
Turns out, this guy wasn't even necessary to defeat for anything. But I didn't know that yet, because I still had to finish the story. I'd already had too many iconic moments to show here, and genuinely the whole build up to the big finale is so exciting. The set pieces, level design, music, atmosphere, I mean, I could go on about how incredible of an experience that was and how this has now probably entered my top gaming experiences of all time. It was truly insane. I didn't struggle with many of the boss fights as I thought they were fairly balanced. And after going through the emotional ride all the way through until the end of the main story, I was ready to now tackle the cleanup phase. I still had a lot of collectibles and side missions to complete. I went through the very fun trials of Muspelheim, freed some beautiful creatures, and upgraded all of my rage and health. But it wasn't until I finally completed the first realm all the way to 100% that I realized what I was doing. Oh jeez, I fucking did everything. You don't need to. Oh my god. I just spent hours finding so many things that weren't necessary for the platinum trophy. I was going for the in-game 100% rather than just the things I needed for the platinum, which literally cost me many hours. I could have saved like 10 hours by not doing unnecessary things, and I really hope this dumb mistake wasn't going to cost me later on. But of course I readjusted my brain and went on to only find the chests, rifts, and berserkers that I needed. And when fighting these berserkers, I sometimes went insane. You see, I once again already attempted fighting these during the story, but what I didn't know back then was that I was severely underleveled at the time.
Can you leave me alone for 2 seconds, bro?
I'm not good at these types of fights. I mean, I've never played a Souls game in my life, and these dudes sure as hell made me realize why I never did. I just couldn't understand how to beat them even after being the right level. I was getting my ass whooped, but with practice and understanding their attack patterns, I started making my way through each one. That meant that everything in the main game was done, and I left the 2 toughest battles for last. Because first, I didn't want just the platinum for this game, I wanted the right 100% this time. So I needed to complete the Valhalla DLC as well, which after loving mostly every second of the game thus far, I was very excited for. This DLC has you going through the events after the game whilst having a roguelite gameplay experience, where each run is a unique one with new abilities you unlock. Overall, it wasn't particularly difficult on the recommended difficulty. Only the final boss fight at the end each time provided a challenge, but most of the encounters throughout were dealt with quickly. Mostly it was just fun. The story also really touched on Kratos' past, which was a very cool experience. However, I really wish I played the original games, as I feel the story of this DLC would have resonated even better with me, but that's for another time. After getting all 12 trophies in the DLC, I returned back to the final 2 boss fights of the main game, starting with the Valkyrie fight. And boy, if I thought the boss fights from earlier were difficult, this just stepped it up a notch. More damage, quicker reactions, undodgeable mechanics, this was an extremely tough one. I really had to log in for this one and switch up my loadout because I just couldn't do it. But after spending over an hour learning her every move and getting closer and closer every time,
I beg you. You little piece of shit. You. Stupid bitch.
which left just the final boss fight before unlocking the platinum. Online, I had read that this boss was supposedly easier than the Valkyrie I did before, but that couldn't have been further from my experience because Bossman absolutely embarrassed me. I don't know why or how, but this dude was unbeatable. I did so little damage and couldn't even get his health halfway before he would hit me once and take away 90% of my health. It was so unfair and I just didn't get it. How do you avoid that? What? I kept trying, but because this was only a 4 to 10 difficulty and I was already struggling this much, it drove me insane. It's not real. It's not real. He was so much quicker, stronger, had more attacks, and was less predictable than any of the other bosses before. Similarly to the Valkyrie Queen from God of War 2018, the final boss is so much more difficult than the rest. But after each death, I critically analyzed what I did wrong and studied his every move into my brain. And after many, many tries, this happened.
Thank you, brother. Still not sure if that was justice or vengeance.
The two are not always at odds.
What do you intend to do with Skofnung now?
I intend to use it.
No. Don't you
I was so relieved to finally be done, as this is also a great time to like and subscribe if you haven't already, but the next game was of course going to be even more difficult, which didn't sit well with me because seeing how much I already struggled whilst not even being halfway through the challenge and still having 6 even more increasingly difficult games to platinum, I needed to speed things up. Thankfully, when looking for a 5 out of 10 game, there was a good choice of games to pick from. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves, Resident Evil 7, Dying Light, but none of those were particularly high on my backlog. Until I stumbled across a game that had been sitting on my shelf for over a year without touching it, and I thought this was the perfect time to try it out. And that was the Callisto Protocol. I rarely ever touch survival horror sci-fi games. It's not really what I gravitate to, but this game had some mixed reviews. Some people said it was underrated, whilst others claimed the game was terrible, so I was eager to find out for myself and see what I think. The story basically revolves around a guy in a space prison set in the year 2320, and I quickly realized that this game looked great visually but lacked depth in the gameplay department. Most of the combat early on is just melee and dodging, and whilst playing on the highest difficulty because of a trophy, the combat was a little strange and tough early on. Why is there no dodge mechanic? Like, not just go left or right, but like backwards. Honestly, I struggled with it for the first few hours. There were a few challenging encounters that proved to be truly challenging because of the limited weapons, resources, and health that I had. Plus the fact I just didn't understand how to play this game. The game only once briefly and vaguely told me about a mechanic I never used, but when I discovered that, everything changed. He just throws them. You can throw them on the wall. If I do this. Okay, that was not it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have found the meta. Using the throwing ability improved my skills massively and I quickly started to get better. At least I thought so, because at the next encounter I was stuck again. I was making it all too difficult for myself, but the gameplay was just so dumbed down that I had to play dumb to be good. I hope I have another. Why is it that simple? Once I understood the fighting mechanics, it wasn't a cakewalk to blast through, but it sure as hell could have been a whole lot more difficult. And then I hate to say it, but this game might genuinely be the most boring and predictable combat I've ever seen. All you have to do to dodge an enemy attack is hold the left analog stick either left or right, depending on the attack. You don't even have to time it or keep stamina in mind, you can literally go on forever. And this wasn't just for the enemies early on. No, because every enemy in the game had the same attack mechanics. I don't think there were more than 5 different enemies throughout. Like, what is that variation? It becomes stale after the first few hours. But at least it meant that the game wasn't posing as much of a challenge as I had feared. So I decided to make the challenge a lot harder by going on a 10-day vacation in the middle of this game, which meant that from day 20 to 30, I made no progress in the challenge at all. And even though it was still early on in the challenge, 10 days is an entire game's pace that I had already missed. So I had to grind super hard when I came back and finish this game quickly. I was looking for collectibles, relearned the easy combat, and got to work sprinting through the game, learning each enemy's attack combo to quickly bypass them. But that was until I came across a new enemy that would eat up quite a bit of time. This two-headed donkey was not difficult to defeat, but I struggled with him a fair amount. This mini-boss has the same predictable attacks that are easy to dodge, but he takes an insane amount of damage before he goes down. He isn't any more difficult than any other regular enemy, but he is a literal SpongeBob meatball. All I did was run around the area and shoot, hoping he doesn't swing me, because if he does, I can get stuck in an almost unbreakable dodge loop because of how slow the movement is. But after many circles and hits were made, I was able to move on. Every single enemy after that was the same. A simple dodge, melee, and shoot to kill. It was just boring. And it didn't help that I didn't properly understand the story either. It was a bit confusing and uninteresting with some mediocre voice acting, and the further my disinterest went, the less I understood. But I kept pushing through, getting closer and closer to the end, and here it got a lot easier because of the plenty of resources and close checkpoints and encounters that I had. I was getting every collectible as I moved on, even popping the trophy for finding all of them one collectible too early. There we Grim Reaper already?
Can you hear me?
Let's go! That again left just one final big boss fight left, which was once again so stupidly predictable, boring and easy. The boss was no different than a regular enemy except with 100 times more health. It was so unfortunate because if this game had a better combat system, more enemy designs and variety, I think this game could have been very fun to play. It wasn't terrible, but just a bland, mediocre, boring and uninspiring mess from start to finish. So after defeating the final boss and watching the final cutscene, I got the last trophies I needed and popped the platinum trophy. There we go, there's one. There's two. Yippee! It's over. Thank it's over. That marked the halfway point of this challenge. 5 platinums down, 5 to go. And even with me taking 10 days off, I was still only a month into the challenge and feeling pretty optimistic. I even got the feeling I might be done quicker than I thought, especially with the next game I had lined up. I didn't even consider any other game here because I had to play the next entry in the series, Ghost Runner 2. I was extremely excited to jump into this game. The original game was one of my favorite platinums ever. I thought the 6 out of 10 difficulty in that game was challenging but fair. It was extremely fun with the super fast-paced movement and gameplay, but the one-shot death made everything risky but satisfying to pull off. So of course I was expecting a very similar experience in this game. More fantastic gameplay, visuals and soundtracks. And after just literally 5 seconds in the game, I already unlocked my first trophy. Hold L1. Oh, I'm gonna have to relearn these controls. Okay. Wow, that was f***ing quick. Jesus, okay. Just like the first game, you die in one hit. And getting used to that was gonna take a little bit of practice. But the game doesn't give you any time to learn early on. It really forces you to get good because after just 20 minutes, it already threw me into a boss fight. And that's where I really noticed something. I think I could finally tell that we've upped the difficulty. Yeah, this was not going to be as easy as I had expected. I really wasn't used to this high energy gameplay anymore. None of the 5 previous games were anything as fast paced as this, and I died far too many times to even admit. I was looking out for certain things for a few collectibles like swords, artifacts, audio logs, memory shards, and challenge terminals, which were all normal collectibles, but the challenge terminals were the ones that provided a mini challenge. Sometimes you had to run through rings within a set time limit, shoot specific targets, or this horrendous barrel throwing challenge which was the stupidest thing ever, but most of them were fairly doable fun short challenges. I got further and further through the game where I encountered new elements from the main game, such as the motorbike, and it was a very cool high energy big adrenaline rush segment that had you sitting on the edge of your seat. But before I even finished the main story and could move on to the actual difficult trophies, I'd already noticed that this game was not even close to as good as the original. The gameplay was great and just as good as the first, but the story was weak with some horrendous dialogue.
Looks like a good job so far.
You're right. Thanks.
Okay.
Even though it graphically sometimes looked like 720p, I was able to make my way through multiple boss fights and finish the story. This meant I could move on to the cleanup part of the game, which would also be by far the most difficult part, such as the no death runs, but before attempting those, I was going to start with the roguerunner.exe, which was a series of roguelike levels to beat in order to unlock a sword for a collectible trophy. I thought this was going to take the longest, but turns out it didn't, and it was probably one of the most fun parts of the game. The levels are short and vary between defeating enemies and platforming your way through. Every time you beat a level, you get an unlock, and so you become stronger and stronger each level, with increasingly challenging levels the further you get. But with limited lives, you need to make sure you don't die as much as you can, or you start at the beginning of stage 1 again. But I won't lie, you get so much leeway with the amount of strong abilities and insane amount of lives you get, if you pick the right options, that this really wasn't that hard. I defeated it in my first real try and unlocked the sword I needed. Next I cleared up some of the collectibles, which wasn't fun at all, but after finding the last one and having done everything else in this game, I could move on to the most challenging trophy in the game, God Runner, where I have to defeat 5 levels without dying. I was feeling very confident in my skills at this point though, and after beating the first one very quickly, I was hoping it would go fairly smoothly. It didn't. No, this not at all. No, I just could not get this down. I was maybe a little cocky thinking I was better than I actually was because I was making so many silly mistakes, because every time I die, I gotta restart the level. And with each level being a couple minutes long, this was tougher than I had hoped for. The thing is that I'd been streaming these runs, and that meant that I was getting distracted very often. I would read chat and completely forget about the game I'm playing. What was the other feat? Oh my, like how am I messing that up? Not being able to think and analyze as to why I died and how I could improve. I just can't. My brain does not like it when I stream. I got 3 out of 5 levels done, but after getting stuck on one of the levels for over an hour, I had to switch things up. I tried the ones that were recommended or I felt comfortable on, but I kept making silly mistakes. Like if I was truly bad at the game, then I can accept it's a skill issue, but I knew I could beat it. I was confident, I had the skills, I just couldn't put it off due to my own dumb mishaps. I was beginning to get increasingly frustrated, and so I just decided to end stream abruptly and do the last 2 no death runs offline. With me now being able to 100% focus on the game with 0 distractions, I quickly made my way to the end of the level. Knowing that I was this close to another platinum didn't help the pressure, and 7 minutes into the level with just 1 enemy standing in the way of me and another no death run completed, my heart started pounding. Why is he not shooting? Oh my god. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. I finally completed 4 out of 5 runs and could move on to the final one. However, by now I had already tried and tested all the levels I found easy. I tried every level until I eventually came across one of the motorbike levels. One that I shouldn't even attempt because of the length of the level and the amount of places I can screw up. But I tried it anyway because of how hopeless I was. And somehow, this was the level that got me the Godrunner trophy. That left one simple miscellaneous trophy to do that I had specifically saved for last. All I had to do was push an enemy off the map and I would have another platinum and could move on to the next game. So I made my way to the encounter and... There is no way I'm struggling with this. Please don't do this. With 6 out of 10 games done, 4 games remaining, and I was still only on day 35, I was almost twice as fast as I had planned with 2 months left. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, I already knew that I would need every single one of those days in order to complete this challenge. But I had to keep on going, so I moved straight on to game 7 the very next day, which is where I thought the challenge would really start. A 7 out of 10 difficulty means the game is truly challenging. It was the highest difficulty I had ever gotten a platinum for. That did get me thinking about what other games were difficult. And then I thought about a genre I had never played before. Souls games. I'd never touched them before out of pure fear for the difficulty, but I had to experience it at least once. So I looked at what Souls games were available with a 7 out of 10, and I thought, what better game to start my Souls experience with than a remake of the first ever Souls game made, Demon Souls. Not only is this game aesthetically completely not my type, but Demon Souls is also a very tedious platinum to get. I looked at the trophy guide beforehand to make sure I wouldn't miss any missables, because holy flip there are a shit ton of them. Plus the fact that it requires 2 playthroughs meant I wasn't just scared of the enemies I would be fighting, but also that if I would miss something, I'd be forced to start a 3rd playthrough. I just had to make sure that I knew what I was getting into and prepared for anything that comes. Which means I had to spend an hour in the character customization screen, pick the magic class and the ring, and was ready to take on game 7. But I clearly wasn't ready for what was to come. The first hour of this game was nothing short of brutal. Like, already just not fun levels of brutal.
Okay.
I swear I could not make it through the first 5 enemies without dying. It was insanely humbling because I really didn't understand why. Which isn't strange because this game tells you absolutely nothing. There's a 15-minute tutorial type level, but after that, you have to figure out how to deal damage, dodge, use abilities, and ultimately kill enemies all on your own. And that's not easy with the overwhelming amount of things in this game. I slowly made my way further through the enemies, but I still couldn't even get up the castle wall. And after not even making it up the wall after 60 minutes, I was already tweaking.
Fucking stupid game, bro. Honestly, man. What the f***? I don't even want to fucking play at this point, bro. Fucking hell.
But I couldn't give up already. So I slowly started getting further, taking my sweet time until I got up the wall and unlocked a shortcut. The thing that held me back was hitting an enemy, which sounds like the most basic thing, but because I wasn't used to using the auto lock, which is something I never use in other games, I was missing all of my attacks. And once I started utilizing that, I got a little bit better. I got further through the level, still dying way too many times, but eventually made my way to the first boss in the game. And after like 5 minutes, this is what happened.
What the f***? How was that? That was so easy.
Easy, however, wouldn't be how I describe the rest of the game though. I made my way past the boss fight and towards the next one, as there were going to be like 20 of them. But this next big dude was my first roadblock. I could not defeat this guy. It really seemed impossible. I did so little damage and he would just one-shot me. It felt incredibly unfair, so I decided to back out to another world and caught myself soul farming unintentionally already. I didn't know it was a thing in the Souls community, but it seemed like the only way for me to get stronger. So after walking through the prison for an hour or two, I was able to level up and attempt it again. This time actually defeating him, popping 2 trophies, one for defeating him and another for not killing any of the archers, because a few of these bosses would have annoying miscellaneous trophies tied to them which would make it a bit harder. After that, things started to go a little smoother. I understood the mechanics, knew what potion or ability did what, and how most enemies would attack. I felt a lot more comfortable and as a result pushed through the game at a decent pace. I killed a few bosses, defeating most of them within 1 or 2 tries, sometimes still dying in a very embarrassing way.
No way.
Until I eventually ended up in World 3, Latria. This was a world where I had many things to look out for. I first had to make sure I killed an NPC in order for him not to kill any of my friendly NPCs in the hub, which is where every other NPC I had met gathered, because if that did happen, it would screw up my playthrough. However, I couldn't kill this guy. Skill issue much? Very, but I attempted it 5 times before I managed to kill him, each time praying that he wouldn't despawn and wander off to kill my NPC friends. The next boss I faced was the toughest one yet, as the man-eaters were the most ridiculous boss fight ever. It starts as a 1v1, but later his friend joins to make it a 2v1, and whatever I did, I got killed. I fell off the bridge or they would camp in the air, bro. It was so annoying. It took way too many tries, but I eventually did manage to beat them. I rescued a couple more NPCs until I faced the next boss. This is where I realized that the bosses themselves weren't the hard part of this game. Like, sure, they weren't easy by any means, but they weren't insanely difficult either. The hard part was actually the walk back. You see, every time you die, you spawn at the beginning of the chapter or world. This means you have to walk all the way back to the boss fight, which can often take up to 5 minutes. This doesn't seem like a lot, but making your way through tough regular enemies and only then being able to fight the boss was so stupidly annoying. Most of the time, it meant that it was more difficult to get to the boss than to actually defeat him. It just honestly infuriated me. Between all the boss fights, I was looking for NPCs and many of the ring collectibles I needed, because missing any of these would be disastrous for my playthrough. I then killed Maiden Estrella with the cheesiest way possible. Yeah, that's pretty much all I did. However, after defeating her, this happened.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, I don't know what. I don't know. I was not. I really don't have words.
We shall defend our hearts and home to the death.
Seems like a dumb but innocent death, right? Nope. I didn't even realize it at the time, but this is where I f*** up massively. What I didn't mention yet is the world tendency in this game. This is basically like an honor system. It can go up or down with white or black. After defeating a boss, it moves towards white, which is what I needed in this world. However, after defeating a boss, you also return to human form, which has more health, but can also make the world move towards black if you die in that form. It's why I always did a Liam Payne in the hub to return to soul form for safety. It's all very confusing, I know, it confused the fuck out of me too. So after the boss fight, I was still in human form, however I just died. It meant that I could no longer get white world tendency in this world, and thus some of the collectibles I still needed. When I realized this, I kid you not, my heart sank. I panicked and didn't know what to do, so I just decided to knock out 2 of the multiplayer trophies before getting back to it. First, I had to help someone defeat a boss after being summoned. I spawned in and defeated the boss with ease. Next, however, I had to invade someone else and then kill them. This was a lot more difficult as it would never let me invade, and when it did, I lost my 1v1. Luckily, I then realized I could also do this trophy during the monk boss fight, this time being on the other side of it.
Get the f off me, bro.
With that out of the way, I could now focus on the stupid world tendency again. I googled around for some expertise and realized I could luckily still do the trophy that I missed in New Game Plus. So with that relief, I could carry on with the last part of the first playthrough. I did some soul farming whilst trying to farm a RNG collectible, got that leveled up at the same time, so that wasn't too bad. Not only did this make me stronger for the first playthrough, but it would also prepare me for New Game Plus, which I needed to be very strong for as that was going to up the difficulty even higher. I leveled up some more, but then realized I was screwed again by the tendency system, because apart from the world tendency system, there's also character tendency. The thing is, I had basically completed 95% of the game, which meant there was nothing I could do to change this. I felt defeated once again, and I was pretty screwed. So I asked my good friend Epic Piss, also known as Kreft, who was an expert at the game, for some help, and he guided me through what to do. Basically, in short, he said I had to defeat some very tough phantoms scattered throughout the game. Turns out, however, I already killed one of the phantoms without realizing. Fan-flipping-tastic, because now I couldn't get pure white again. This meant I could only get that by invading players, but because I was at such a high level now, doing this naturally was near impossible, and boosting was hard because of the same reason. Do you see what I'm going through, bro? I was quite literally about to give up on this entire challenge here. The game was far too confusing. I was now 7 days into the game and hadn't even completed my first playthrough. But I was too far in to give up. Epic Piss decided to boost my motivation by dropping me some resources and a terrible RNG gold coin, which saved me a ton of random collectible grinding, and I carried on with my high spirits. I looked at places to find a boosting partner and eventually found someone on a Reddit boosting thread, messaged him and asked if he also still needed help. He said he already got the plat, but he was willing to help me out, and so after 3 hours of trying to get the right tendency, Noble0511 was a literal lifesaver and I managed to get the collectible. However, after that, I would need to go back to pure black for a different trophy. Again, don't worry if you're not following, I had no clue what I was doing either. Instead of phantoms this time, I now had to kill NPCs. Simple, right? But no, because once again, I had accidentally already killed an NPC by mistake. Some stupid NPC that looked like an enemy and I didn't even realize it at the time. It meant I now no longer could get pure black again. Like, holy fucking shit, do you see what kind of difficult stuff I'm going through here? Thankfully though, for some unknown reason, the game decided I didn't need pure black, but only partial black for me to speak to the NPC for this specific trophy. So I did her quest and got it. I then defeated the final boss and got the endings I needed after 41 hours. I did a save scum to save a third playthrough, and that meant it was time to start New Game Plus. Yep, we are far from finished. I had heard that New Game Plus was a huge jump in difficulty from the first playthrough, and because I had already struggled significantly with that, I was obviously pretty scared as I had to go through basically the entire game again on a higher difficulty. But because of the practice and experience I now had, on top of me being prepared with a high level, I kinda thought it was fairly doable. It honestly felt like starting a new game, but not much more difficult than the first time. I now knew how to fight and dodge enemies, plus I knew exactly where to go while skipping things that weren't necessary. I used some overpowered abilities to defeat a few bosses, but apart from 2 or 3 boss fights, I breezed through the game. Bosses were easy, I knew exactly how to defeat them, and I knew exactly where to go. A great showcase of how practice and experience makes you better. I killed all the bosses I needed, got the remaining rings and spells unlocked for the collectible trophies, and had just one single trophy remaining. Remember that I died in human form and was locked out of one trophy? Well, it was finally time to get that one and finally finish this excruciating experience. We did it, boys. We f***ing did it, boys. This is it. Congratulations, thank you very much, because this is my platinum trophy. With just 3 games left and still over 50 days of the challenge remaining, I was feeling incredibly optimistic. I'd already played some great games, but from this point onwards, these games were not only going to be difficult, but brutally difficult. So for the 8 out of 10 game, I was looking around for something fun. Something that wasn't as confusing to play as the previous, so I came across games like Ollie Ollie, Pac-Man, A Pixel Story, and even Black Ops 3. So instead, I gravitated towards a game that had always piqued my interest, but I truthfully knew absolutely nothing about. It was made by the people over at From Software though, who have made some of the most difficult games out there, and this one was no different. Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. I know nothing about the Armored Core series. Quite frankly, I hadn't even heard of the franchise up until this recent release. But I was ready to be thrown into this universe full of robot transformer soldiers. And at first, I was very confused. This time not because of the trophies, but because of the immense amount of things on the screen. From the confusing UI to the millions of lock-ons and alarm sounds ringing to enemy variety, it was a lot to take in. So it took me a couple of missions before getting an understanding. And the missions are what this game is all about. Because to get the platinum, I would have to replay this game not once, not twice, but 3 times. This was in order to get the different endings, missable collectibles, and missions. However, a 4th playthrough was needed in order to get S rank on all of the 59 missions, which could not be done during a regular playthrough. So yeah, this was going to be fun. I won't lie, the first few missions weren't particularly hard or anything. I'd almost call it easy, to be honest.
Bro, these missions are fucking easy as shit, bro.
But as with most FromSoft games, Armored Core also has boss fights. And when I encountered the first one, that's where I finally realized that this game was an 8 out of 10. This dude was insanely tough. I could not beat this guy for the life of me. I would dodge, but he would still hit me. I would hit him, but only for like 0.5 damage. I mean, this dude felt unbeatable.
No, dude. Oh, I'm still alive. What the f? Okay, never mind.
It would take me almost an hour to beat the first boss of the game. However, after playing 6 hours on the first day, I really did not feel like picking up the game the very next day. The game hadn't clicked with me on first impressions. I could tell this was going to be a slog to get through, but I did what had to be done and continued further. I played through each mission one after the other, already knowing I would revisit it another 3 times afterwards. But I slowly understood why I wasn't enjoying it so far. Each mission only lasts around 5 to 10 minutes. Very short, which is nice, but you get thrown back into a menu hub screen after each mission, where you can choose your next adventure or change your loadout. But because it takes you out of the gameplay each time, it slows everything down tremendously. And if I want to make sense of what the story is trying to tell me, I have to sit through a mission briefing cutscene that oftentimes, no joke, lasts longer than the actual mission itself. But even the core gameplay, I wasn't overly impressed with either. The movement was sluggish no matter what build I was using. And after almost 10 hours in the game already, everything still felt unfamiliar. And honestly, after almost finishing the first playthrough, I got hit by a significant dose of burnout. This is where the entire challenge had really taken a toll on me. I had been doing this for 50 days already, playing almost every day, but with this game not interesting me as much as I had hoped, I really didn't want to keep going. So I took a break for a day, looked up some great builds to use, and got back to work because these trophies aren't gonna pop themselves. And I started to use big and strong tank builds whenever a level was difficult. It meant that I could blast through each mission to each boss fight. But these were unbelievably difficult. Unlike Demon Souls, where the bosses were fairly easy but the rest was not, this was the opposite, because the bosses were brutal. Especially the last boss, who was the most difficult enemy I had to defeat in the entire challenge thus far. Air was the final boss for one of the endings. There was nothing my gamer brain could comprehend as to how I would ever defeat this AC. But what my gamer brain did know is that there's always a trick. And so I googled how to defeat Air and came across a tactic to defeat her with ease. This would make her unable to do some of her moves and make it easier for me to hit and dodge. It was a lifesaver and finally allowed me to complete my first of 4 playthroughs, which meant it was time for playthrough 2. A couple different collectibles, choices and missions to do to get a different ending, and bam, second one done. Time for the 3rd playthrough, more of the same and done. There was also another trophy that I had to get during my third playthrough, because that was the arena bosses. These were like mini boss fights with armored cores, but were low-key super easy, because with the right build, you could destroy these enemies. I mean, this is how the very last arena fight went.
Oh, yeah, actually already did. Okay, maybe not. We are, yep. That was fucking ridiculous. That was the hardest one and it took me 20 seconds.
But with that out of the way, it was time for the fourth and final playthrough, where I had to go through all 59 missions again to get the S rank. I was dreading this part and was so tired of this game already. I started replaying the first levels and got the S ranks mostly first try. But after attempting a level a bit later and not getting an S rank after some 10 tries, I had no clue what was happening. The game never tells you what the requirement for an S rank is. People online will speculate that it has to do with the time you spent on the mission, or the damage taken, or the damage dealt, but there wasn't a foolproof way of doing it, and that was the case for a lot of these missions. It was impossible to do these missions because it felt like the requirement for an S rank was always unreachable. I spent hours on some levels going through each level so many times doing different tasks to figure out how to get an S rank until it would just randomly give it to me.
What the f? What the f? It's so weird, man.
I slowly made my way through each mission again, hoping to get an S rank. But before being able to beat all of them, a certain little blue cute different robot game released that I just had to play. Which meant I had to pause the challenge to get the platinum and video out for the game of the year. I sacrificed my time to get this video out, and after returning from Astrobot exactly 7 days later, I still had 20 S rank missions to do, each one being unfathomably difficult to beat with no clear instructions as to how. The boss fight S ranks in particular just had the strangest requirements. And that's then an S rank. Make it make sense. I eventually made my way to the very last mission, but even the last mission was still incredibly annoying to beat. I just can't anymore. I f***ing hate this game. Thankfully, only a couple tries later, this happened. A rank. What should be an A rank? It's f***ing did it. After almost 50 hours of playing the same missions over and over again, I was so glad to finally be done with this game. As great as getting the 8th platinum was, we still had the 2 most difficult games remaining, and we were now well over the halfway mark at almost 2 months in. And as I've said many times now, it's only going to get more difficult. However, now not just because of the game, but also the time remaining. Almost every game I was looking at for the 9 out of 10 was going to take a long time to platinum, but I was pretty set on which game I was going for as soon as I remembered its existence. Trackmania Turbo. We had our work cut out. I had actually played Trackmania Turbo many moons ago when the game originally came out on the PS4. I mostly played the multiplayer mode with a friend, but it turns out I had already popped 14 out of the 49 trophies after 9 hours, done 2 track masters already, and completed the entire White series. And in order to get the platinum, we would have to complete all 200 tracks and get 50 track master medals. And so to get back into the game, I decided to try out the first level and get the track master, which meant I had to beat the gold time and get a green medal. But instead of getting that, I got a trophy for failing 5 times in a row without improving, which was going to be a common theme in this game. It took me about 15 minutes, but I eventually did get the track master. And with that little bit of practice done, I was now ready to take on the campaign again and started where I had left off. I actually managed to breeze through these tracks like it was nothing. I really enjoyed this vibrant, fast-paced, fun racing game, which was a big difference from the dark and gritty, depressing games from before. This was genuinely really enjoyable, and I got addicted to the game quickly. There were 4 different cars in each series, and each one brought a new driving style and map themes with it. It made sure that the game wouldn't become too repetitive, and I loved it. I had basically no issues with any of the early levels. Except for 66, whoever designed that needs to have their brain examined. But because of how lenient the gold medal requirement was, I was having a good time. So far, it wasn't as tough as I was expecting. but maybe that's because I hadn't reached the black tracks yet. I managed to get into the red tracks after a few hours without too many issues. However, the red tracks were also where this game was going to start getting more difficult and prepare us for the dreaded black tracks. There were also multi-lap races, which were basically the same thing, except you had to do the lap 3 times, which was very tough and where I had my first big struggle. Race 125 was just a nightmare. There were jumps, tight corners, long drifts, and then more jumps. Bro, this level was unlike anything before. I could get a decent lap in and actually be ahead of the gold medal, but doing it for 3 laps, no pun intended, drove me insane.
Now to do another 2 laps without up. It took me less than 5 seconds.
But I attempted it again.
Alright, we are once again ahead on lap 1. Can we survive for more than 5 seconds? Find out on today's episode if Sandres can make a video about the most difficult games he's trying to platinum, and he's having a lot of fun. Okay, we made it more than 5 seconds. Okay, we made it 6 seconds. Jesus!
It was more about survival than actually being fast. I kept trying for 3 hours but wasn't getting any closer. I was about to call it a day, but then...
Please, 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 please. Oh my god. Oh my f***ing god.
At least I could now finally continue the Red Series again. And even though I was struggling a lot more by now, I was still enjoying playing this game so much. The good thing was that I could restart checkpoint at any sector if I struggled with it to practice it before attempting a full lap. It was addicting to try again and become better. I always wanted to play just one more lap and I couldn't put the game down. And I think that really helped me push through these levels. I managed to get to the black tracks much quicker than I thought. And now it is time for what I have been dreading this entire time. After 34 hours in this game, it is time for the black levels. Okay. Trees. This track set the mark perfectly for what I had to expect. Crazy angles, long jumps, extremely tight corners, insane speeds, and all of that for over 60 seconds. And after a couple tries... First gold on black, dude. I am going to be done tomorrow. I might have been a little overconfident, but I was making great progress. Bro, this shit's easy. Bro, this shit's so easy. Well, turns out that couldn't have been further from the truth. I was finally noticing why this game was a 9 out of 10 and such a rare plat. And when I reached the first multi-lap of the Black Series, it's where I had to lock in so hard. The speeds of this level were insane, breaking the sound barrier with every jump, and I kept crashing and crashing and crashing. It's where the game became extremely frustrating. So when I returned the next day, I obviously beat it first try, but these weren't even the hardest levels yet. Next to big jumps, loopings were the worst thing in this game for me. I had so many issues with them. Please, 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 please. Oh my god. No, no. Come on, let go of the gas. Yes, 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 yes. No, 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 yes. Let go of the gas. And on 172, there were more annoying corners as well. Okay. However, after trying to beat that level for so long, I gave up on it for the night. But I thought that because I was streaming, I once again wasn't as focused as I could be. So when I ended stream for the night, I attempted it a couple more times and it took me less than 3 times before I finally got it. That is so stupid. That is... wait. That is stupid. However, everyone in chat kept saying that 178 and 180 were going to be hell to get gold on. So when I approached those levels, I was pretty scared. 178 had so many uncontrollable and ridiculous jumps to make. Every angle or speed I attempted was either not fast enough or I would simply crash. So many tries until this happened. Oh my god, maybe. Oh my god. 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 Do not even think about it, bro. No. No. It sucked because that was as close as I had ever gotten. I attempted it for another hour but never got close again. So I decided to once again end stream and tried a couple more times off stream. Oh my god, please, 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 please. Again, like 5 minutes off stream, 5 minutes off stream, 5 minutes off stream. I need to stop streaming. And then came 180. Another tragically difficult level claimed by everyone who's ever attempted it. But no joke, I got it after like 20 minutes. I wasn't even recording because when I got it, I was just putting in some practice before going live. So I now only had 20 levels remaining with 2 of my favorite cars. But I had put so many hours into this game over the last few days that and it's embarrassing to even admit this, started dreaming about this game. I'll spare you the details, but it really was an eye-opener as to how many hours I was putting into this challenge every single day. I decided to do a few of the miscellaneous trophies to switch things up. These were extremely easy and got most naturally. However, for 2 of the trophies, I needed a second player, so I grabbed my brother and got to work. I gave him the doo-doo controller, beat him, and got the trophy first try. But for the second one, we had to drive together with one car. Shit! Where's the... Okay, there we go. 2 drivers, 1 car. Easy, okay. Oké, nou daar heb ik niks te zeggen. I got back to the campaign and the remaining levels weren't a huge pain until I reached 190. This level was a joke. I could not get through the first sector, let alone the whole lap. And when I thought I finally had it down, like I'm making it more consistent. Why do I even f***ing talk? The angle I had to get into the jump with to then be met with a long magnetic section, but it was again more about actually surviving the lap than trying to be as fast as possible. So I kept practicing and doing it for almost 2 hours. The same 20 seconds and crash, but I slowly got better and further with each attempt. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. You stupid little prick, dude. Honestly, suck my
Wiener.
What a stupid level. What a stupid level, bro. Honestly, get the off me. Suck my
Wiener.
Holy shit. 10 levels remaining and it was with my favorite car. This car was just so smooth and fun to drive, it made the last 10 levels a joy to play through. Because it didn't take long for me to beat all of them until I reached the 200th and last level of the campaign. I thought this might be ultra difficult compared to the rest, but no, it was just another level. And after an hour of attempting it, I made it to the last section. Please. Please. Sir! That's it. I now only had a couple more track masters left before the platinum trophy. I had done most of them already as I attempted the green medals anytime I was taking too long on a regular level that I was struggling with. So I started to work on the remaining track masters. And then I had just 1 green medal left. I got a donation earlier saying I should do 162 as my final track master, and so I had to accept the challenge. 162 was a black track, which meant it was one of the most difficult tracks in the game to get a green medal on. I got 3 practice rounds in until this happened. I don't know where to go now though. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my... How? But I kept trying a couple more times until this happened. You... Please hype me up, dude, honestly. Let f***ing go, dude. I don't even know what to say. I didn't f***ing script this, bro. This is insane. I can't believe I did it on that. I played 55 hours of Trackmania in just over a week. However, even though I was quick, I had just 29 days to platinum the hardest game of the challenge and that I had ever played if I wanted to avoid the Stroke the Dick Dick Platinum. There really was no doubt in my mind what game to pick for the 10 out of 10. I had to pick a truly difficult game, the hardest game available to Platinum. Not an easy 10 out of 10 like Wolfenstein 2 or Fall Guys, but an iconically brutal game that has been on my PS5 for almost 2 years, waiting for this very day. It is day 71. There are exactly 29 days remaining before the challenge ends. It is time for the final game, Super Meat Boy. This game is widely known as one of, if not the most difficult games to Platinum ever. So it's only right that I did this as my 10 out of 10. Super Meat Boy is an iconic game that's very easy to understand, but incredibly hard to master. Most notably for its brutal no death runs. These would be some of the most difficult things I'd ever have to do in a video game. And having to do this 100-hour Platinum in just under a month was going to be an even greater challenge. And so when I unlocked my first trophy, there was no going back. Oh, what the Oh my god, I'm actually locked in already. But honestly, again, the first couple hours weren't too bad. All I had to do was get Meat Boy to the other side of the map to rescue Bandage Girl. I was beating levels in only a handful of tries and was having a decent time. It wasn't until the 4th world that things started to become quite a bit more challenging. And this is where my frustration began. Dude, please, man. It quickly became increasingly annoying to fail a level multiple times over. I was really struggling with learning the mechanics. I never played platformers, let alone a game as difficult as this. So this was all completely new to me. And unlike in Trackmania, I couldn't just restart checkpoint right before a jump to practice that section of the level. After a lot of trial and error, I eventually made it to the final boss of the game. It felt unbeatable. I died so many times and it was terrible. Each death didn't feel like something to learn from, but just a waste of time to get back to. It was not fun, especially when still doing things like this further in the level. This is it. Oh my god, dude. But with enough practice, I started to get better at each jump until I gradually made it to the end. Although I had just completed the main story, there was still so much left to do to get the Platinum. Dark Worlds, collectibles, 100% the game, and only then the no death runs. So I started with getting one of the most powerful characters in the game that would be useful throughout all of this. Unlocking the kid, however, would prove to already be one of the most difficult things I'd ever have to do in a video game. I mean, just look at this level, dude. I'll ignore the over 1,000 attempts and 2 hours this level took to beat with multiple close fails, but I managed to get it only to realize there were another 2 painful levels attached. Holy shit, and there's more. Oh my god. The second one wasn't too bad, but the third one was just as bad as the first. This was so obscenely difficult that it was just pure dumb. But 2,000 attempts and 4 hours later, this is what happened. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh. Oh my god. I started working on getting a fast time in each Light World level to get A+ and unlock the Dark World variant, which basically makes a normal level a lot more difficult. I started with the first world and levels, unlocked the Dark variants, and even got comfortable enough to attempt my very first no death run. There we go. There we go. It took me like 3 tries, but defeating all 20 levels in a row on the easiest levels in the game already had my heart rate go up, which was going to be a big part for when I'd attempt the later no death runs. However, before getting too ahead of myself, I started working on the other Dark World levels, collectibles, and 100% this time. But with 16 hours and 4,500 deaths, this game was already driving me nuts. I got through each warp zone, light and dark world again, getting the A+ or bandage throughout, but when I approached the skyscraper level, a new difficulty level was introduced. I thought the kid levels were some of the hardest in the game, but nobody warned me about these, because these were even worse. This was a warp zone, which means you only get 3 lives in each of the 3 levels you have to beat. So unlike the kid where I had infinite lives, here I only had 3. This was a horrific experience. I would get to the 3rd level and only have 3 attempts to beat it or start all the way at the 1st level again, but I just couldn't. But these levels truly tested my mental state. And when I finally got close again, this happened. Oh my god. This took me over 5 hours to complete, but I genuinely could not mentally handle this game. I couldn't understand how people thought dying thousands of times was fun. Sure, it felt satisfying to beat a level after so many tries, but that was always overshadowed by the countless deaths. So if you did like this game, please tell me why. But I still kept pushing through, collecting bandage after bandage and making my way through both the light and dark world, until I eventually reached the Cotton Alley, which is where the most difficult levels in the game were, and you cannot switch character. After struggling but beating the light world levels, I started working on the A+ levels, which were for the dark world and also quite a bit more frustrating. No. For f***'s sake, man. I'm so... But after that, I had to defeat the Dark World end boss again. Even when the level was more difficult with more traps and obstacles, I got through it much faster. I had now put in so many hours and attempts across all levels already that I was finally becoming decent at the game. Which was a great feeling, as I finally got the 100% after playing for 50 hours in 7 days and already dying 12,600 times. However, everything I just went through was the easy part. Now comes the reason why this platinum is so difficult and rare. The no death runs were going to take everything to another level. But with 1 week already done, I was going to have to play even better. I didn't think time was going to be the biggest issue, but rather my skill. With me clearly not enjoying the game as much as I'd hoped, or even at all, I would need to push through a mental barrier in order to get this done. So with no time to waste, I quickly got to work. The first few worlds honestly weren't that bad. I got Squirrel Boy after a couple attempts, Needle Boy after that, and each one after that I was able to get after like 6 hours of practice. But I was still making many silly mistakes that would screw me over. Being 5 levels away from the trophy and then doing this. I hate this game. I hate this game. Things like that were why I started to despise playing this game. Things I shouldn't be dying to, but I only had myself to blame. This wasn't an AI bot, another online player, server connection, lag, or whatever other excuse you can think of. No, this game was purely down to my own mechanical skill. No excuses. I loved that part about it, but hated it at the same time, because I would hate myself whenever I made a mistake. Which is why every no death run trophy I got felt like a mini platinum on its own. But it wouldn't be until Missile Boy that I started to truly hate this game. Missile Boy was on the 3rd Dark World, which was still ways off the actually hard levels. So I thought this was going to be a relatively easy run. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. This trophy was one of the worst to get. From the previous runs, there were usually maybe 2 or 3 difficult levels. I would do those first and then move on to the easier ones. But Missile Boy already had so many crazy levels. These levels just didn't feel fair. There didn't seem to be one way to beat it consistently, and when I did, there were another 5 levels that I couldn't beat either before being able to attempt the rest of them. I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't f***ing take it. I am going insane, dude. But after 3 days of endless tries, I did this. Oh my god, my heart is racing. 1 jump. Nope, I can't do that. And every no death run after that was really just more of the same. Increasingly difficult levels, more pressure, more consistency, more frustration. This is finally where I genuinely thought I had to give up. I had put so much time and effort into this game already, but with just 2 weeks remaining and the hardest runs still to come, I dreaded having to play Super Meat Boy each day I woke up. The game was boring and repetitive to me. There were some unexplainable deaths. Bro, I was exhausted from playing it that I mentally could not take the stress of playing this game. And I really thought I should just stop the challenge here. But giving up on the last game wasn't for me. so I started to consider my options. I still hadn't completed the challenge, but I could attempt a different 10 out of 10 game instead. Like Fall Guys, for example, which I had some practice in before. I knew the game was a lot more fun and doable and was still a 10 out of 10. But Fall Guys was impossible due to the time restriction I had. However, Wolfenstein 2 was only a 50-hour platinum, and also a game that I would feel much more comfortable in because I love FPS games. I'm good at them, I have thousands of hours of experience with them, and it just looked a lot more fun. I thought of it as an easy 10 out of 10 because it only requires one difficult trophy, the no death run you have to complete on Mein Leben. So I ordered the game and tested it out. But then the trophy gods had different plans. Because I've never had any issue with the physical disc on my PS5 ever, but this game would not install properly. I cleaned the disc, deleted the game and tried it multiple times, but the game would not install properly. I got it to work once without updating properly, but it crashed 10 minutes into the game. So I saw this as a sign from the Platinum Trophy gods that Super Meat Boy was destined for me. With that tiny sabbatical behind me, I got back to work and had to push through. I was slowly getting confident on a few levels that I was getting more consistently. Even in my head, I would know when I was going into a level that I was good at, tell myself I should be fine here, but then this would happen. It's so weird. It's so fucking weird. Or even on a last level. I just died on the last level I needed. I did 19 in a row. The last level. Can you even believe that? But with practice comes greatness. 30 minutes later. Oh, this game, dude. This game. So I cried and made my way through the Rapture Dark World, suffering through every death, slowly accepting I might fail the challenge, but many tries later, got to what I thought was the last level before the trophy. Come on, please. That's not the... I didn't... I think I have to do one again. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, I thought this was the last. That still isn't it. Oh my god, where did I die? So I checked my gameplay and realized what I had to do. It might be Ogmar. It might be Ogmar. It might be Ogmar. Oh god, dude. We've done it 1,000 times, we can do it again. Oh my god. Oh my god. Now I had just 2 trophies remaining, and 7 days on the timer before I had to stroke the dick. It is literally Tuesday, 7 days before the challenge ends. I locked the f in. I thought it was possible again. I had a motivation that I hadn't felt before. So on day 93, with 7 days left, I started to learn the light world levels on Cotton Alley. They were fun and fresh, and because these were the most difficult levels, I wasn't as frustrated as normally because it's obvious you're going to die a lot here. I carried this momentum onto day 94, where I became more comfortable with some of the levels, noticed which ones I struggled with, and where I needed to improve. And on day 95, I unfortunately had to touch some grass and couldn't practice. But on day 96, I played all day. I knew that level 19 and 20 were the ones I struggled with most. Mostly because of the ridiculous tiny dumb blades that you had to be pixel perfect for in order to jump over. And these would prove to be my worst enemy in all of Cotton Alley. I started every no death run with these 2 levels because of the tiny blades, but I couldn't beat these levels consistently. So I took a small munching break and returned to do a practice run before attempting it again. Somehow, I miraculously got through 18 levels with my 2 hardest levels remaining, and that's where this happened. This left just 1 trophy and 4 days before the end of the challenge. On day 97, I started to learn the Dark World levels for the last trophy, and very quickly realized these were extremely hard. But of course I had no choice other than to keep practicing. So on day 98, I played the entire day again to get better at each level, practice the ones I died most on, and attempt a few no death runs. But I wasn't able to handle the pressure too well. Yeah, level 19 and 20 were once again the hardest levels I had to complete. Except this time, there were even more of those silly, tiny, small blades to jump over and under. Which meant that on day 99, I put all of my practice into perfecting everything. I was getting very confident. It was slowly turning into a when I get the plat and not if I can get the plat. And when I finally got a good run in, this is what happened. My hands are so incredibly sweaty, dude. Holy shit. I'm actually shaking. So it finally came down to the very last day. 100 days ago, I started what I thought was a fun challenge, but what eventually led to the dumbest video I'd ever work on. Many hours of grinding and frustration led me to what would ultimately be my final few attempts before the end of the challenge and potentially having to stroke the dick. So I woke up early that final day to grind the game for what would hopefully be my last time. But the pressure was really catching up because throughout the day, the same silly mistakes kept happening. And as the sun went down and the hours kept closing in, it came down to what would be my final attempt. Oh my god, I have never died there. I have never died there either. Oh my fucking god. You know what the worst thing about this is? It's now officially day 100. And 1. I failed the challenge, bro. I failed the challenge. I'm so close to it as well, bro. I am so close to it as well. I haven't got the platinum yet. Which means only one thing is left. As I sat through the 71 easiest trophies I'll ever earn, I questioned why I did this. All of this grinding just to be met with an embarrassing platinum instead. I'd platinumed a handful of other shovelware games, but those were because of funny milestones, and this one was just different. This one genuinely hurts, bro. It genuinely fucking hurts. But this challenge wouldn't be complete without getting the final platinum, so I returned the very next day to redeem myself and finish the game. I just had to concentrate, relax, and stay calm. But again, when I was just a few levels away from the platinum, that was hard to do. Motherfucker, you want. I just wanted this platinum, get this video uploaded, and move on with my life. Because I was now getting consistent, good 16 plus level runs, but anytime I actually got decently far, I would feel physically sick because of the pressure. But somehow I made it to this level, which was the last level I had to complete before the platinum trophy. Oh my god. I don't even know. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'm never getting this platinum, dude. But since I was so close, I was determined to get it that very day. I have put myself in the perfect situation. Deleting if I can't do it. This is not good. Oh, dude, my heart rate is in my throat, throbbing, dude. Come on, dude. All I need is to get them together. Come on, dude, this has to be it. 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 Surely I did 19 and 20. Please, 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 dude. God, it's fucking... Oh my god. Oh my fucking god, dude. 22,000 deaths, 150 hours in 4 weeks, 2 days past the deadline, and 102 days after starting the challenge. Super Meat Boy and the entire difficulty challenge was done. Did it, dude. I f***ing did it, dude. Could I have done this within 100 days? Sure, if I had no life, took no breaks, or with a few shorter games and one of the easier 10 out of 10s like Wolf 2, I know that I could have. I think every game I will ever platinum from now on will feel much easier. My gaming skills have undoubtedly improved, and every other trophy was going to be easy compared to what I just went through. Would I do this again or recommend anyone else to attempt it? I don't know, you tell me, would you do this challenge? I'd say stay as far away from this challenge as you can unless you enjoy to suffer. At least I had now done the difficulty challenge by platinuming 10 games in a row, with the exception of Astrobot of course, so if you want to check out why I had to pause the challenge for that, then check out this video. And that's it. See ya!